right, good morning, folks. You're going to hear the microphone stand squeaking as I move from one side of my desk to the other. This is Tim Radford on WKRK. Let's resize the screen to fit my face. And today is, as I mentioned on Party Line, Casual Friday. No necktie, no bow tie, nothing like that today. It's just a casual
Friday.
Casual Friday. I thought it's a little too warm to wear a tie today.
It has been a beautiful week.
It has. Let's put the camera on the sheriff there and get the camera off of me, and let's resize that box. We got to make sure you get the logo in there. There we go.
We don't want to break the camera.
That's right. How are you doing, Sheriff?
I'm doing well. Well.
Okay, I've got the radio stuff recording, so I'm having to. You'd be surprised how unprepared I am. You know, when the sheriff walks in. He's like, you thought that you'd had all this stuff ready to go.
Everybody's canceled on him today, so it looks like that I get a 3-hour program today.
That's right, 3-hour tour.
There you go. What can we do? You want to sing a while? Or you?
Well, someone suggested I do that this morning, but I don't think that'd be very good. But I think you'd probably be really good at that.
Well, I don't know. I've never heard you sing. I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah, no one really wants to. So
So you mean the music that you're playing, that's not you singing in the background?
Most of it is not, yes.
Okay. All
yes.
right, well. That'll work.
How's the sheriff this week?
Doing well. It's been a beautiful week this week, and actually I'm a little bit tired right now because this was our vacation Bible school week at Valleytown. And,
right.
So we working of a day and up there of a night and trying to patrol some of Andrews after Bible school, and so it's been late nights getting home this week. So, but we've had a good week, had a good time. We had a lot of kids. Our thing for the week is they do penny offerings. The kids bring pennies in to try to raise money, for different programs. This year we decided to take up a penny offering for kids within our community that needs help, where they don't have clothing or they need some other issues or other things that we'd have some money to provide to help the kids in our community. And the kids that came in the Bible school this week brought over $2,500 worth of pennies.
Wow.
The bank don't like that.
The tax office doesn't like it either.
Yeah, the tax office doesn't like it either. My sister is the president of the bank up there in Andrews, and she always says, "Oh, I dread when your Bible school is going on because they always bring all those wagon loads of pennies."
It's awesome though to have those kids contribute and give to something bigger than themselves.
And we had the boys and girls competing against each other. Judy Allison was the one that was our Bible school director, put everything together, and she had the boys and girls competing against each other to see who can bring the most pennies in, and you ought to saw those kids. They had just a blast this week, and they really had a good time.
So. And well, it was nice seeing your church up there, and
Tim had to go with me to help with some technical difficulties there.
Which I'm glad I did, because I know that when things break at the radio station, I know the engineer to call.
Right.
Engineer Sheriff Derek
Well, I did
Palmer.
the soundboard and the computers and all this kind of stuff up there at church for Bible school. And one thing I have learned, and I don't know why, but I have learned that nothing breaks until it's time for something to start. Then when it's time for something to start, then you can't get anything to work. And so you have my sympathies at the radio station.
Exactly. Yes. I don't do a lot of planning for things outside the studio because things usually don't break inside. Well, they do, but if I try to do anything outside the studio, technically things tend to break and not work the way they should.
One thing I want to mention real quick too, I see here on Facebook that JJ Wooten is watching, and JJ is out of work right now, and the reason he is out of work is because they have a brand new baby that was born. So
congratulations!
We want to say congratulations to JJ and Courtney for the birth of their child there. So enjoy it.
We'll see.
Get what sleep you can. Come back to work.
That's right. Get the sleep that you can.
Right. Yeah.
Between the hours of 5:30 and 6 in the morning,
so you can get to work.
That's right. Get to work.
Yeah, but what we did, we had a great time this week. We had a great time with Bible school, and the weather was perfect this week. And,
no flooding this week.
No flooding this week. The very first night of Bible school on Sunday night, we had some rain, had a little thunderstorm come through that first night, but it was good for the rest of the week, and the kids just had a great time, and it was just a great week. Just had a good week.
All right, Eric Bird just gave us a thumbs
that's our
up.
pastor.
Pastor Eric Bird. I thought that was him.
Yeah. He lost. He was representing the boys on the penny drive, and so since the boys lost the drive, the girls raised more pennies than the boys did. he got to get wet last night. So all the kids got to wet the pastor. And when I looked around, I said, this is times. It makes me glad I'm not the pastor. But he's a good sport. He did a good job.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what else is going on in the sheriff's office right now? Give us a weekly update.
Well, like I say, it's the same old stuff. I mean, we're busy answering calls. We're still working with, of course, in Andrews with the situation up there with their police department. They got a chief now and got a officer and some part-time help up there. So hopefully they'll be getting back on their feet before too long. But we're still assisting them and helping them with Andrews. And
it's going to take a while to rebuild.
It is. It's
having to start from absolute scratch.
Yeah.
And build a police force up. And I know people get frustrated.
They do, and people want things fixed overnight. But unfortunately, we can't fix things overnight. But in the meantime, we're still helping with them. So we do a lot of our patrol efforts and stuff up there in Andrews. And like I said, after Bible school this week, before Bible school and after, I've tried to spend some time up there in Andrews and patrolling and checking on things. And, and I know the deputies have been up there. I pass them every time I go through Andrews. I pass a deputy up there somewhere. So we're just trying to do what we can to help out the folks up there. And we know that they get frustrated with the drug situations and all those other things that's going on there. But we're doing the best we can. And I hope people understand and realize, that we still have, an entire county to patrol. And
a very large county land-wise.
We do.
And road-wise.
I think it's something like 450 square miles or 454, something like that, square miles in the county. So, it takes a long time to get from one end of this county to the other. And so we try to do the best job we can do. And
when Sheriff Robbie Holland was here from Macon County, they were talking about a lot of people are concerned because the Nantahala area that they feel don't get the coverage. But he made a point that there's not the same amount of crime. They don't have to respond on that side of the county. So I'm guessing the same thing applies here to Cherokee County, that, these remote areas, you're not seeing the same amount of crime to have to respond to.
It is
true.
True.
As the populated areas.
Yeah, that's true. And that's one of the arguments that we have every year. We're right in the middle of budget time. Through May and June is when we do our finalizations on our budgets and have our hearings with the commission board. And when we get to fighting over money and tell what we need, and we tell them what we need, and they tell us what we're going to get. And so
everyone wants to see an officer in their community at all times, regardless.
But that's one of the issues that keep coming up. And like I say, I want to say again, I do understand the predicament that our commissioners are in, and I do understand that they have a lot of issues within the counties, and there's only a limited amount of money to go around. I do understand that. I'm the kind of person that leans on that. I think that, the person that's in the northern end of the county, whether it's Unaka or Violet or Schiller's Creek or Pack Mountain, any of those places, they deserve to have coverage just like anybody else does.
Absolutely.
And I believe that, and I believe that with my entire heart. However, I do understand from a financial point of view, is we do have to keep our cars where the crime's happening. So we do have to keep our cars fairly close to Murphy and Andrews and the Peachtree and March Creek and Wolf Creek and, those places, kind of where your high traffic places are. We have to keep fairly close to those places.
Do you think that some of the criminals know that and they target the areas where they're...
They do. They do.
And they go back roads and things like that.
Well, one of the things that keeps going back is talking about the Sheriff Holland was talking about the Nantahala area. If we use Unaka, Grape Creek, we use Violet, Schiller's Creek, those Joe Brown Highway, those places, and we use that for an example in Cherokee County. When we go to the commission board and we argue for more officers, and one of our arguments is, that these places are not getting the coverage they need to get. One of the things that keeps going back to is the call volumes, right? How many 911 calls do you get? How often do you have to go? Those kind of things. And so just like Nantahala and the Macon County District, for Cherokee County, when we look at these areas, that call volume is low, and we get very few reports of needing law enforcement in those areas. However, one of the things I keep reminding the commission board is when you're not in those areas patrolling, you're not catching crime that's happening, you're not making arrests, so therefore your numbers are not there because you're not there. And so it's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of a revolving door. They want to see more calls and more need for crime happening there, more calls and more need for officers, so they can put somebody there and give the money to justify putting somebody there. but you got to have somebody there to get the numbers
Right.
justify it. So it's just a never-ending cycle for that. But again, those are places that we still try to get to. We still try to protect. We still try to make efforts to get to those areas when we can. But just sometimes the call volume just don't allow
Exactly.
it. Just don't
And
allow it.
Nantahala is a unique place. And I remember years ago on Facebook, someone got mad at me because I was doing our whole coverage area, let me know if you're in this area, and I forgot to include Macon County. He says, "Well,
Right.
I'm from Nantahala. Apparently, he forgot about me. And to me, Nantahala is on this side of the mountain. I've always considered that part of Cherokee County, but it's
Right.
not.
Right.
So, that Macon County is a huge county too.
It is.
And they have the Franklin side and then the Nantahala side.
Right, and then they've got Highlands, the
Highlands.
Highland side over there too. So
It's that's a lot to juggle.
It is.
When you have those different territories in one big county.
I did some statistics the other day, some numbers, and I think through the first of this year, we have averaged somewhere around 3,800 calls a month, which is still even a little higher than it was last year. Last year, I think the total for the year was right at 40,000 calls
Right.
that we did last year. And so right now, we're looking at right around 4,000 calls a month that we're doing. And I think honestly, I really do say this. I think it's a testament for our officers that we have working, for our patrol division and our investigators and narcotics that we have working. I think it's a testament to them that our total amount, counting court, counting civil process, counting everything we do, we have a total of 30 sworn 30 officers in the sheriff's office. And I think it's a testament of those 30 officers being able to juggle and handle 40,000 calls in a year, and still fighting crime, making arrests, and going to court, and doing all the other things they have to do with that. I think it's a testament of what kind of hard work they're doing and the effort that they're putting forth to try to keep their communities safe.
Now, when we have our local town police officers, like the town of Murphy Police Department, and then when Andrews has their full police, typically, do you overlap and duplicate services, or do you just say town of Murphy Police handles their jurisdiction and we pretty much handle the rest, or how does that work?
For the most part, everybody handles their own jurisdiction. Murphy Police Department will handle everything within the city limits of Murphy. Andrews would handle anything within the city limits of Andrews, and then we would handle the rest of the county. However, we do have mutual aid agreements with each other, and quite often does Murphy and Andrews Police Departments come out in the county to help answer calls in the county, and quite often do we go in the cities and answer calls within the city limits. But one of the things that we kind of take the lead on for the most part is those narcotics operations and those kind of things that's happening with the drug world inside the county. I know that with Andrews being shorthanded the way they are now, that's something that's really hurting the town of Andrews, because we are trying to get up there and work on the drug issues, but we rely on the city police also to help curb that, to try to keep it on the dealing with the street level things, of dealing with what happens within those cities, and gathering information and informants and intelligence and those kind of things. We kind of depend on the cities to do that, so with it we can do more of the undercover type operation. And I know the town of Andrews is really hurting right now with not having the city police up there in full force like they have in the past. And down at Murphy, I know that Murphy Police Department, they handle a lot of their drug operations within the town itself. But if there's anything that's going to spill out into the county or going to be bigger, that they feel like they need help on, a lot of times they'll give that to us, and we'll work on that within the town limits of Murphy.
All right. It is interesting when you have jurisdictions inside other jurisdictions,
Right.
like the county, the sheriff. You cover the whole county.
I can.
But inside that jurisdiction, you have the town officers as well handling things.
The sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. So therefore, the sheriff is responsible for everything inside that county, and including the towns, including the city limits. But with the jurisdictional boundaries, that gives us the opportunity to hand a lot of that stuff off to the police departments, to where we can focus more into the outside of the towns and the more rural areas and deal with those things out there. Now, as far as like civil process, we handle that for the entire county inside the city limits, because that's our responsibility through the sheriff's office. We handle the court systems, of course, and all those different things that we have to do with the sheriff's office. It's mandated by law. A lot of people don't understand this, and we were talking yesterday with Darrell Brown, our county attorney, about different issues. And one of the things that Darrell had brought up that most people don't understand is that by law, by statute, the sheriff is only responsible for civil process, the security of the courts, and for the jail. And that's all the sheriff's responsibilities are. Everything else that we do at the sheriff's office is because the sheriff chooses to do that to try to help his community. There is no law out there. There is no requirement for the sheriff's office to respond to 911 calls. There's no requirement out there to fight drugs. There's no requirement out there to even answer any kind of crime within the county itself, other than domestic violence is anything mandated by law that a law enforcement officer has to make an arrest on. But a lot of people don't realize that.
So if you wanted to, you could pretty much scrap the department and just take it easy for a while.
You could. I mean, honestly, the sheriff could, as long as he was doing civil process, maintaining the courts and the jail. He could say no to everything else, and he wouldn't get reelected.
Right. Just think of the mess we'd be in if that were the case.
Yeah, he wouldn't get reelected if he did that. But the fact of the matter is, legally by law, the sheriff could do that in any county in North Carolina. The sheriff could do that. And as a matter of fact, Mecklenburg County, that's what the sheriff does in Mecklenburg County. They have a county police department, and the sheriff of Mecklenburg County just does the civil process, the courts, and the jail there.
Oh, really? Okay.
And,
did not know that.
Yeah, and so a lot of people don't realize that when they start talking about the drug issues and all the things that's going on in the county, even though the sheriff gets the blame for a lot of those stuff, technically by the law, it's not the sheriff's responsibility for that. But all sheriffs do it. All sheriffs step in there and want to do it to help their communities and help fight crime and help the different things that are out there. That's why we become sheriffs. That's why we step into that role of being, what I say, used and abused a lot of times, but we step into that role because we do want a better community. We want to help our citizens that are out there. And but still, a lot of people think that's a responsibility of the sheriff, and it really isn't.
At one time, not too long ago, the 911 communications, they actually fell under the Emergency Services Department, correct? And now they're under the sheriff's office. Is that a better arrangement?
It is, and in a lot of ways. There's good things, and always good things and bad things about working with the sheriff's office. One of the good things, as far as the county is concerned, is with it being in the sheriff's office, is by being under the umbrella of the sheriff, we have a lot more leeway on making things happen and discipline of employees and hiring and firing and those kind of things. That because under the sheriff, you work at the pleasure of the sheriff.
Right.
And so. Really, a sheriff could come in and he could say, "I don't like the fact that you're wearing a black shirt today. I'm firing you. Go home." And there's nothing anybody can do about it. It's the law says, and the court rulings say, that a sheriff can hire or fire for a good reason, bad reason, or no reason at all. And so a lot of those things that is brought into the sheriff's office is easier to maintain and control, because you can keep more discipline, and that you can make things happen a lot easier. The bad thing about coming and working under the umbrella of the sheriff's office through 911 dispatch is they're like any other sheriff's office employee. A new sheriff could get elected and could just tell everybody to go home, and there's no recourse.
I'm hiring all my people instead.
That's it.
I remember back when used to any state employee, if a Republican got elected, then all the Democrats were fired, and the same thing with Democrats getting hired. You basically, it was so party related back then.
Yeah, it's a little harder now to do that because everything requires certifications and training and schools and stuff you have to go to. Back in the day when that was happening, you had no certification. So you could literally just go off the street and pick somebody up and put a badge on their chest and say, "You're my new deputy," and go to work, But today you have to do appointments, and you have to run everything through the state, and you have to have certifications and trainings. So for a sheriff to come in and just fire everybody and just to get rid of everybody would not be a wise move unless he had about 30 certified people that he was ready to come in and put to work.
Yeah, and I could imagine being, an employee of the sheriff's office and just being so antsy, wondering how the election was going to turn out because my political affiliation was going to have a job or not.
Right.
And that had to create some undue stress.
Through my career as a deputy sheriff, I have worked either directly for or with 9 different sheriffs. And That was through my time at the Drug Task Force. You know, you worked under sheriff's offices there. You were employed by those sheriff's offices. So every time an election occurred and a new sheriff come in, you was going through that process again. And when I worked for the task force, we handled the far west end of the state and worked for the sheriff's offices out here. So literally, you was every sheriff that was up for election, you was worrying about which one was going to get elected and who was going to replace them and all those kind of things. So I've been through it for about 23 years as a deputy sheriff, and so been through it 4 years now as a sheriff and going into my second term as sheriff. So I can tell you from being a deputy sheriff, it is very stressful, or being employed at the sheriff's office.
And I'm glad they have the certifications there,
Right.
because that pretty much shows that you have training, that you're qualified to do the job, and that your reason there is not just because you have a D or an R after your
Right.
name.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't understand even today is when they go in, a lot of times they expect the sheriff to, I'll vote for you if you'll fire Tim Radford, because he's not a good guy and I don't like him and I want you to fire him. Well, sometimes it's not that simple. I mean, it is simple to fire him, but replacement, right? If you have specialized skills and training and those type of things, and people want you to just fire someone because of an R or a D behind their name, sometimes that's not a wise thing to do, because who are you going to replace them with, and who are you going to get that's trained and certified and those kind of things.
And in your case, the previous administration had a lot of qualified people working, and you retain those people on your staff because they had qualifications and they were good people.
Right, I did. I retained actually most of the staff. There was a few that I let go when I was sheriff the first time, and a lot of that was not necessarily of getting rid of bad people. It was the fact of that I had people that I needed to come in to help me, and there's only a limited amount of positions, so you have to go through that process of elimination and find out, who you're going to replace with who, kind of thing. But it goes back to that. I did not, first time nor the second time, did I come in and fire people just simply because of political affiliation or those type of things. I hire people and put people in positions based on their abilities and their ability to support the sheriff's office, their ability to support me, and their ability to support the citizens of Cherokee County. And if they can do that, they're in good shape. And I always tell people that deputies, that when it comes up time for re-election and it comes up time to campaign and those kind of things, it's something that Jack Thompson told me when Jack Thompson was the sheriff that hired me. And one of the things Jack Thompson told me, and he told the deputies working at the time, he said, your job is to be a deputy, my job is to politic. So as long as you do your job, and as long as you stay out of the politics, and as long as you just do the things that you need to do out there and be a good deputy, you're going to be fine, and don't worry about it.
He was a good man. I think just about everybody in the county liked
He did.
Jack
He was a
Thompson.
good man. I like Jack.
He always seemed so laid back, too.
Yeah. Now I will tell you, Jack is one of those old school sheriffs that, when I was coming in, we were coming into a new generation of technology, and cell phones were just starting to come out, and internet and those kind of things. So we were looking at the future of law enforcement, and Jack was one of those old school sheriffs that didn't care about that, didn't care about the technology and the new stuff that was coming out. So we butted heads a little bit on that type of stuff. But I tell you what, I really loved the man. He was a good man that he really looked for the best in people and really tried to do the right thing, I believe. And he actually gave me my first job. And I think I may have mentioned this on the radio one time, but I remember my wife was a dispatcher at the sheriff's office, and we had a small child, and I was on layoff from a job that I was working, and I came up to the sheriff's office every day trying to get a job, and Jack didn't put it together, that we had a small kid. And I come in there one day carrying Leah, my daughter. She was just a little baby at the time, and
Who just graduated from college?
Who just graduated from college, yeah. And Sheriff Thompson looked at me and he said, "Are you working anywhere?" I said, "No." And he said, "But you got a baby." And I said, "Well, I know, Sheriff, but I got laid off." And he turned around, he looked over his shoulder, and I don't remember who the deputy was that he was talking about. That might have been Eddie Harden that was standing over his shoulder. He looked at Eddie and he said, "Eddie, go get this man a badge and gun. He needs to go to work." So just the fact of that he saw that we had a child that needed some employment, needed some income. He was want to step in there and help us, and so I really appreciated that. I really thought the world of Jack because of that.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
good folks, and you don't always get that if you're not in a small town where folks take care of each other.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a good feeling.
Right. And like I say, we had issues over the years. There's things we didn't agree with or get along with, but at the end of the day, I think we really loved each other and respected each other at the end of the day. I tell you the truth, I miss those days. I miss those days when law enforcement was simple.
Yes, I can get that.
Yeah.
All right. Any press releases coming out that we need to know about for our radio and Facebook audience?
Roger will probably be coming out with some this next week.
Okay.
We had indictments earlier on Monday, and I know we had several people indicted. We're in still process of picking people up and serving indictments and things of that nature. But I'm sure that probably this evening or this weekend, Roger will probably come out with some more press releases. So.
Okay, and Roger's always very good at getting those out to us, and
Right.
we'll publish those on WKRK's Facebook page. And again, we don't publish all the crimes, but the major ones
Right.
that are affecting a large amount of people.
Well, people ask all the time, and this is something I want to make sure people understand too. They say, well, the indictment was Monday, and you know you got the indictment, so why are you not going ahead and doing the press release? Well, one of the things that we need to make sure people understand is that most of the time, there are some exceptions, but most of the time we try not to do a press release until an arrest is actually made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't want to put things out there ahead of time. If I've just indicted Tim for robbing a bank and he's still on the loose out there somewhere, we don't want him to know it, you know, so he goes and hides. And
I would too. I probably would.
I probably would too, to be honest with you.
With all that money.
Yeah. But we don't want to put press releases out early that cause people to go hide and not turn themselves in and those kind of things, and then we have to track them down. And
Isn't that what happened with Eric Rudolph?
It is.
Didn't he find out about that on the news and then left out?
What had happened on that? They had called up, the FBI had called up that day and had told us that they were on the lookout for Rudolph and that he was from Cherokee County and wanted to know if we could help track him down. Well, we did. We located him and found out where he was and where he was living. But before the FBI could get here, the news, CNN and some other news programs had put his name and picture and all that kind of stuff out on the television, and then it was about 7 years later I think they actually caught him. So
I was thinking all that money wasted in hunting for a person,
right,
had only the information not gotten to the TV
right.
that he was watching at the time.
Yeah. So that's one of our big reasons why we don't do press releases early until after the arrest is done. But the other thing too is this: if you have indict people on crimes where they're victims, once you arrest someone, you can do bond conditions on that person and do restrictions on what they can do and can't do. But if they get word of it ahead of time and there's no bond and you've not arrested them yet, there's no bond restrictions, we don't want people going after victims or victims' families and you
Right.
know, and harassing them and saying things to them and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of reasons why we wait on those press releases coming out. And so I think most people understand that, but some people don't. And some people question why we hang on to those and why it's a week later or 2 weeks later before we do the press release.
Right. Some people are just thinking, oh, they're just lazy. They don't feel like writing them. But there are reasons.
There are reasons why we do that.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Sheriff, anything else you want to mention before we close out our show?
Well, it looks like we have a chance of rain this weekend. I think we're still going to have a pretty good weekend. But
I think so, too. Looking forward to a nice sunny weekend, hopefully.
And one of the things I do want to mention, we hadn't talked because we've had elections going on, and we've had all these other things that's happening in our community that we've been talking about. But one of the things we always try to talk about this time of year, and we haven't had a chance to talk about, and we may get into next week if you want to, is talking about just safety issues, about being out there in the hot weather and, hydrating yourself and not overexerting yourself, being overheated. And this time of year, especially boating things, being out on the lake and rafting and boating and hanging around boat docks and all those kind of things. Just be careful while you're out there.
All right. Well, Facebook friends, you may have to remind me by just typing messages next week. Say you're supposed to talk about safety. Remind us.
Right.
We will do that.
We get to talking. There's no telling what we'll talk about.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But, Sheriff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You are tuned to 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide, we're at country.am.